Board meeting to order for Thursday, March 5th, 2022 for 5 o'clock. Number 2, roll call starting from my left.
Jamadi here.
Minter here.
Hasdall here.
Bowman.
All right here.
Number 3, can we get a certification of posting of the meeting, please?
I certify that on Monday, May 2nd, 2022, the agenda for the Town of Rome Board meeting for Thursday, May 5th, 2022 was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 12:39 p.m., posted at Rome Town Hall at 12:43 p.m., at Leicester Public Library of Rome at 12:55 p.m., and at Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 1 p.m.
Thank you. Number 5, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We need to approve the agenda on number 4 first.
Oops,
Skip one.
I skipped one?
Yes.
We can
All
go
right,
back.
can I get I can go back?
We can
Let's-
go back.
Let's do the pledge, all right. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's go back to 4. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Number 6, citizen comments. Any submitted? No action contemplated except possible referral to future agenda. Number 7, information updates, meeting recaps, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements. Lori, welcome aboard. Would you like to start?
I have nothing, thank you.
Boy.
I actually have, so Renee at the library sent an email out that Adams County Board is meeting Monday at 10 a.m. and they're gonna have another discussion about the potential Adams-Lester joint bookmobile.
Oh, good. I thought that was dead. Good,
That's not totally dead yet.
good. There's hope.
Yeah.
And apparently the
nothing-
Wisconsin Dells bookmobile is slated to come up and be on display. They hope.
Bob?
Nothing.
Had a few things. At the annual meeting, there was made mention that a board member was in attendance and possibly had undue influence or attempted undue influence on the board's recommendations. I just want to clear the calendar on that. There was no board member in attendance at that meeting that night, and it was a private citizen exercising her rights. One other thing we have this weekend, Visit Rome is having Adopt a Highway on 5/7. Please go to their website, look, do a cleanup on the road, and following week, 5/14, the Rome Snow Bandits will be doing the north side of, the north side of 13. So that's all I have at the moment.
I have a couple things. So this week, you probably saw, transfer site is paved.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Very
there's
nice.
Looks nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Gate
Right,
that's up
awesome.
for entry. The other roads that we slated for pavement this year, I know Lilac is already done. Square and East Court, if they weren't done today, should be done by the end of the week. We had good weather this week finally, so we should be all done with paving projects by the end of this week. We are starting to train on the mastic machine next week, and we'll have a presentation of that mastic machine in action at some point, whether we schedule that before a town board meeting or at a separate time, but we're starting training next week on that. I did hand out 2 items tonight. First, this is a list of the county board, the Adams County Board supervisors and the committees that they were assigned when they went through their annual meeting. There are 10 new members of the county board, and now there are 3 that are in the town of Rome, but I just thought this was a handy tool to know which committees each one of the town board members represent. And then the other piece I handed out was the Area 1 brush and timber reinspection. So we did Area 1, which is the north side of Camelot up to the town line, last year, and then we did a reinspection, re-noticed people and gave them a new deadline or a second notice about it, and we just did our final inspection. So you can see there the dates between May 5th and February 24th on what we had for the total. There was 252 properties that were not in compliance. We had 94 that came into compliance in February. Now we have 170 in compliance, and we had 54 citations that will be issued. So, and 28 making progress. So we now are at 67% compliance. And I thought it's a good segue. We just got an email from Amy Penn today that today is actually the anniversary of the Cottonville fire, May 5th, 2005, and that burned over 3,410 acres. 9 year-round homes were burned, 21 seasonal homes, 60 outbuildings were destroyed in that fire. So just a kind of a coincidental reminder that was today, and we got this information that we've now come 67% compliance within Area 1.
Were
That's-
these letters all certified that went out?
No, so the first round of letters were not certified, the second round were certified. But then the last bit of information, we just did that through social media posts and information we shared in the community to say that April 30th would be our end date and reinspection. So the other 4 areas, those letters did not go out certified mail, they just went out regular mail.
Bob, you gonna say something?
Yeah, I'm just disheartened to see that 21% of the people are non-responding and haven't done anything and may not have a plan to do anything until they get cited.
In fairness to everybody, it's been a really rough spring, so I'm thinking that probably has some impact here.
Yeah.
I doubt that.
They had about a year to do this. So
Yeah, they've had plenty of
Yeah,
time.
well,
this wasn't a surprise. Yeah, something a little different. Would it be appropriate to send the 170 compliant folks a thank you note?
I mean, it would
Kind of
cost-
take the sting out of a
Costs too
letter?
much.
A postcard then.
potentially. And the other piece we could certainly do through social media and sharing posts, we could do a thank you. I mean, we could share these
Think about it.
numbers and share a thank you.
Maybe an appreciation,
Yeah.
but
Well, they helped with the fire safety and
Right.
increasing property values. I mean, it's,
I
A
do
thought.
happen to agree with Dan, though. It has been a nasty spring, very cold and wet, and hard to. I
Well,
appreciate everybody's efforts, though.
I did ask Jamie earlier if how many of the non-compliant ones were out of state, just on, who knows, it might be folks that don't have a chance to get here or something. But I did hear about one that said he hadn't seen a lot in 30 years. So, no wonder.
Yeah, that's always a potential. I think 67% compliance,
Yeah.
Ah, that's good.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, any other announcements? No. Okay, number 8, discussion and action, approval of the April 19th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve is printed.
I'll second for discussion.
Just one change under item number 11, the address there for Mr. Smith should be 1576 Kingswood Trail. So if you could just amend your motion with that small adjustment.
I'll amend my motion to include the corrected address on item 11.
Okay, other discussion?
A discussion on minutes? Yes, I have 2. First of all, with 6 and 11, has to kind of piggyback on what Chairman said earlier about the citizen that spoke in regards to the fire chief subject matter. I would like to address the issue as far as, I think it might be a good time earlier, or many years ago, we had some training, and I think it might be appropriate maybe for the board to ask if we would agree, maybe to have Jamie, our town administrator, bring back that citizen started speaking out as a citizen, and I think as it went on, he spoke more and more as a commissioner, a PFC commissioner, and I think maybe it might be good to have us consider a joint training between ourselves and the PFC once again, as we did years ago, and have either our, I don't know who you currently use, but we had the HR personnel attorney, Jim Macy at the time from Von Briesen, and Kyle Gulia, who was, I don't know who is now, the attorney for the PFC, come in and do a combined training as to what the role of both is when it comes to the hiring and firing and discipline of our police and fire personnel. And maybe in light of what happened, that might be good for all of us to have something like that again. So maybe we might want to have that discussion at a future meeting, or have Jamie explore that option for us and have that type of training once again. So I think that might be something we'd want to maybe have happen.
We also filmed, I'm sure we filmed that meeting. I mean, we could go back to, you know.
It was a
provide
long
copy.
time ago. It was even prior to Mike Miller. It was,
Oh, I remember,
It was
When
Mike,
I was here.
yeah.
was Mike here when we did that?
We had something
Oh,
since,
Jerry's nodding his head too, he
since
remembers.
I've been
It
on the
was in
board, we've
this
had
room.
something.
Attorney Gulias who did
Julia,
that.
yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah, maybe we'd want to consider maybe having that again.
would also have it filmed that maybe we could have it shared.
Okay, I'm just thinking, and then the other item I wanted to bring up has to do with number 14. Being on the prevailing side of that motion, I went back and read these minutes, and it had to do with these fire numbers, and I went back and looked at the county. It references the county numbering system and the conversation that took place, talking about tree stumps and rocks, and I was a little concerned with the way that this was mentioned in our minutes and that. I'd actually like, being on the prevailing side of that motion, I actually would like to move to reconsider letter A only of that motion, to allow the developers of Sedge Valley to come back, have an opportunity to come back and return to present to the board a specific design plan of what they actually had in mind and envisioned for a building numbering identification system, and what they had in mind, because it is a private subdivision within a multi-million-dollar development, and oftentimes there are designs, themes, and elements throughout. Originally, when Sand Valley was developed, there was something approved there as well. And if you go up through those private homes, if you had an opportunity to go during the hockey thing, you see beautiful signs that have a cottage name with numbers that are easily readable. And you can go up and see the names and the numbers. They're easily identifiable. And I'm wondering if we could allow them the opportunity to do that. You know, driving through there, you can easily find the homes. So I would move to reconsider letter A of that motion.
We can't
Just
change
from a
anything.
procedural standpoint, just a couple comments here. First off, you have a motion and a second, so am I hearing that you want to withdraw your second? With the hope that then you either would have your motion withdrawn as well, and then you'd make the motion to reconsider. I'm not saying a motion to reconsider is inappropriate. I would just make a comment that what we can't do is reconsider something that a party relied on, and so if it's just a specific component of it, like a condition that was placed, perhaps you could, but you'd have to get through that motion to reconsider, have a second.
It sounds like she's asking for a new agenda item that we could consider in the future.
I think it would.
That's not what I hear.
What I'm hearing is trying to change the minutes, and that's, I
No,
don't think you
that's
can.
not, that's also not what I hear. So what I heard was, first off, there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Then I heard a motion to reconsider. That's to bring an item back right now to take back up again. And that's what I'm hearing is the desire. My point is you already have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. You need to do something with that motion, I think, before you can get to a motion to reconsider.
Okay, so what would be the correct, so then I would need to rescind or what do you,
Rescind your second.
all right.
And you still have a motion. I mean, Dan, either you'd rescind your motion or somebody else could make a second and you move forward with the approval of the minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so now you have a second to approve the minutes?
Yes.
As presented.
With the address correction.
With the
Go
address.
ahead, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
So that'll allow us to reconsider.
No.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, so now, if your desire is to make a motion to reconsider, you could you could make a motion to reconsider that agenda item. I would just say that, again, reconsidering an agenda item by which a party relied on in order to proceed with something, so in other words, you can't reconsider the approval of the final plat, right? That's
Right.
moved on to the county.
It's just that one
If
element.
if you're trying to make a motion to reconsider that particular condition, you could do it, but again, that's, yes, as the prevailing, somebody on the prevailing side, you could make that motion, somebody would have to make the second, you'd have to vote on the motion to reconsider. If that passed, then that agenda item springs back. Does that make sense?
Okay,
It'd be more appropriate just to put on the agenda for the next meeting, rather than trying to reconfigure it here, cause
It's up to.
I'm going to caution that it would be bad practice for this board to go down this avenue.
I agree.
Yeah,
Even though this is a
Agreed.
relatively minor thing in the scheme of things, I don't think it's a good idea.
If you wanna set it as a future agenda item, I suppose you can. Right now, it's a condition that was placed on the final plat approval. And,
Which the builder and developer are comfortable with. They are not uncomfortable with that item.
so I missed it, Lori. Did you make the motion?
Yes, I did.
To reconsider?
Yes, I moved to reconsider.
Okay, so you have a motion to reconsider. Then you would need a second.
I think they would appreciate us reconsidering this and having it as an opportunity for them to bring it back, to discuss it with them.
You talking B, C, and D?
No, just A, the signage. Only the signage. We already discussed about the water. It's just simply the signage as how it would look in said village.
Just note that your motion to reconsider is that whole agenda item. And then you'd have to.
Not the plat, just
It is
A.
the whole agenda item, and then you'd have to make the decision to, if you're going to adjust that one item. But a motion to reconsider brings back that item. There's things we can do and can't do with that, given this particular item. But at this point, Chairman, you have a motion to reconsider. I mean, you'd have to have a second to proceed anywhere with this.
I made the motion to just reconsider 14A.
You saying you can't do that?
Let me see 14.
She needs a second anyway.
Okay. I'm gonna second for discussion only. Why are we making this so complicated? Why can't we have Jamie reach out to the developer and ask if they would like us to reconsider that, then we can bring it back? I'm sure they haven't ordered address signs already.
Likely they have not, but I know Chief is in the back also. This has come up as it's been a complicated issue where they have been posted on rocks or other places. It's a consistent message for all emergency vehicles to see that red sign and to locate that red sign. We've had a conversation with the developer about that topic, and they said, we're fine with that, we understand, we'll just do the red signs.
Fine.
Chief?
This item needs to be looked at again across the entire Sand Valley complex. I drove out there today, and when you get in front of the main entrance to Sand Valley, there is a new, now it could have been earlier in the winter, I don't go down that road every day during the off season, but there's a sign there that says 1475 Archer Drive. Every call that we were sent to out there last year, we were sent to the private road name. So if I'm a responder from outside of this area and I'm sent there for a 911 call and I see an address sign on the road that says a red fire number that says 1475 Archer Avenue, I'm gonna go past it. I'm gonna be like, that's a driveway to a private residence, and maybe that's changed, but I as the police chief haven't been informed that that's changed. And I just sent an email to our sheriff today asking if that was changed through them or what, but there's a number out there that says Archer Avenue and not the private road name. And then when you drive down further, there's 1497, which is the road, or excuse me, 1697, which is the road we've been dispatched to where their service entrance is. So my full-time guys all know where they're going out there, but I can only imagine that some of the folks from Lifestar that come here from Columbus and other places have no clue. They're gonna go by the sign that's in the road, and the signs in the road are wrong right now.
Okay, but that's a separate item from what we decided last.
But if they're
last
putting
board
red
meeting.
fire numbers in that are similar to those, you're gonna have a disaster out there. If they're putting numbers that aren't listed out on the road, it needs to be reevaluated so that there's proper response there. And what I'm saying now, there isn't proper numbering there, in my opinion, after seeing what I saw today.
And I didn't even talk to Jason about that. I've just talked to other people that are
So before
looking to
we-
build homes in there, that's all.
Then I might say that what Supervisor Goldman suggested, just to put it on a future agenda to review all of this and see if it's an issue and what needs to be addressed, may be the appropriate way of handling it. It sounds like it goes beyond this particular issue.
So, okay, so we have a motion and a conditional second. So we're not, I'm sorry?
It
The
was a
second
second.
was a second. I was just saying my intent of the second.
Conditional for discussion only, so technically we don't have anything to
That's
vote on
not a-
then, right?
It was a second, but he can withdraw his second.
No, I withdraw my second.
Okay. Do we have a second anywhere else? Okay. We will bring up in a future agenda. It does need more discussion, I believe, and research.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Number 10, discussion of, 10 is correct, right? Discussion of possible action, approval of disposal of 2005
Number
Lund boat. Number 9, I'm sorry. Discussion and possible action, approval of resolution number 22 designating 2021 fiscal year budget carryovers to 2022.
There's a resolution included in the packet. These are after audited numbers for your carry forwards to 2022.
Can I get a motion?
Move to approve the carry forwards as described in the memo.
Second?
Discussion? I have a question. Which of these items are allocated and which are unallocated?
All of these are allocated. They're
To expensed items or to just allocated to a future use?
allocated to the budget, so
To the budget?
to their respective budget. Most of them are designated, let's take cemetery for an example. That cemetery is always, has to stay within cemetery. You've made a
Yep.
decision to select that it would stay in there. So when you see a budget this fall, you're gonna see a balanced budget, but we never spend all of that money, right? It just stays within cemetery. So when you see a budget this fall for even, fire 2% dues, you're gonna reflect a balanced budget that's gonna go into the 2% dues expense. We never plan to spend all of that, but you need to present it to be balanced.
Okay, so let's say we expect expenses next year for the cemetery to be 15,000, so we'd have a carryover again of 10,000?
You would keep, whatever would be left in there stays within cemetery.
So this does apply towards the budget?
Yes. Yes, so, unassigned prior year revenue, good example. You have in your budget $1,060,000 that you were gonna carry forward for expenses in unassigned prior year revenue to cover general fund expenses. You ended up with more than that, good, like we did good on savings, so you'll have more in that, but you had already budgeted that you were gonna expend $1,060,000 of those funds.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion's carried. Now we go to number 10. Discussion and possible action, approval of disposal of a 2005 Lund boat with a 60 horsepower Mercury outboard and set minimum bid amount.
There was a memo in the packet. This would be a surplus item because we did receive a new patrol boat just recently. The police chief and the public works director will coordinate on the best method to sell. Usually that's Wisconsin surplus. We've been doing well on Wisconsin surplus. The town board sets the minimum bid. The minimum bid we would be asking here is $7,000. As long as we achieve at least $7,000, then the sale just happens and we report back at a later date what we made on the sale.
I'll make a motion to approve the disposal of the boat listed in the agenda with the minimum bid of $7,000.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Number 11, discussion only. Review of Town Code Chapter 137, boating and waterways, and language for boating regulations signage at public boat landing.
There was information in the packet, so this is potential new language for the signage. This is what they look like. And then I also just included our chapter 137 for boating and waterways also in the packet for reference. I think both Nick and Chief are here to kind of talk through this.
Okay, what's the intent of this?
I can take a stab at answering it just with only a question of clarification. If you're asking what the intent of this sign is, it's, so
No,
by statute.
I'm asking
we
what the
have to-
intent of the ordinance. I know, the sign to me is confusing. I don't think a reasonable person would understand that.
Well, and we have to have a sign, that's by law. If we can clear up the provisions of our sign, I think that's why we're here. If you're asking what the intent of our ordinance is, are you asking generally or a specific part of our ordinance?
Well, I think the problem, and this has been a problem for years, is the way, the state law and that exemption is 100 feet of any shoreline where there isn't a pier, correct? So, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a
Come
pier,
on up,
right?
chief, to the mic.
Well,
So
boy, it says-
essentially, but,
We're
but,
buoys.
but people get in,
Buoys.
well, buoys that
Yeah.
have a meaning, yes. So people get into an argument all the time, well, I can run closer than 100 feet short. Well, in the majority of these lakes, you can't because there's gonna be a pier, right? So that's where this state law exemption comes into play. And maybe if you wanna explain the rest of that.
Yeah, the history of it is it was passed by the chief prior to me. It was passed in part, I believe, the ski team requested it along with other property owners on the lake, because if you don't have the exemption for the motorboats and you're taking your grandkids skiing, you're gonna stop 100 feet from shore and let them sink out in the area where the boats are going back and forth, which creates a hazard. So there's only a couple places on the lakes where you can go faster than slow no wake, and that would be in front of some of the beach clubs where there's no docks, rafts, or piers, in front of the public beach where the ski team does their show down there. You'd be able to go without slow no wake. So my predecessor brought it to the town board at the time to pass the exemption for the tri-lakes to allow motorboats to operate faster than slow no wake, closer than 100 feet to shore where there isn't docks, rafts, or piers. And the state of Wisconsin allowed us to do that when they passed that bill in 2013. They said a local government can exempt themselves from that 100-foot rule, and that's where the chief and board at the time decided to exempt the tri-lakes from it. So we can't exempt jet skis. Jet skis, if you read that state statute, it says jet skis are exempt from being exempted, that it's 200 feet from shore from them. They can't get any closer. That's been years and years that law has been in place. And to be quite honest, I've received no complaints on this in my office in my tenure. I've not had any jet skiers come in and say, how come I got a ticket for being closer than 200 feet from shore when you exempt this? It hasn't been an issue until it was brought up over this past winter. I don't know if it has been in court and court appearances I haven't been at, but no one's complained to me about confusion with the sign in my tenure.
You wanna give a legal definition of a reasonable person? There is one. It does exist.
It's still confusing.
But
I think it could be reworded to reflect what we actually mean better.
The thing is, the problem with the sign itself is a reasonable person reads it and they pretty much think we're exempt on 100 foot everywhere. There's nothing on there about piers, docks, boats, anything else. So
Well, I think
and there
that
are other places in the lakes that, you know, if there's no, like, some of the beach clubs, that means I can go 25 feet from shore in front of a beach club?
If there isn't a dock, raft, pier, or smart swim area.
Yeah, there's two beach clubs in Rome property over on Camelot. and
But then you couldn't there, right? Like,
Yes, you
let's-
could.
not if there's a pier there, you
There's a
couldn't.
swim area at every beach club, there's a
Then
swim
you
area.
could go
anyway.
closer than 100 feet.
I guess where the
Why would you want that?
language on the sign comes from, you can read the state law, and verbatim what's on the bottom of our sign is what the state of Wisconsin tells us to put on it. So the board has two choices really, and I'm kind of neutral on it. I gave you the reasons at the time that the board exempted. It was due to the ski team and concerned parents that had water skiers and stuff that didn't want to stop 100 feet from shore and have their kid bobbing around in the heavy boat traffic. That's why this was put into place. We could repeal it at a future board meeting and just go with the 100 foot everywhere, and then you'd take that whole part off the sign and just have the top pieces. Otherwise, unless Attorney Flanagan has different suggestions, it's kind of like the ATV sign that we just talked about with residents and saying town roads. I mean, people come up with that excuse. It says town road. I'm on County Z and I got a ticket. Well,
about a town road.
Some of it, if you read the book, if you read your voting pamphlet that comes with your registration, it clearly explains all these things in there about municipalities and local ordinance, and if you're too foolish to read the manual that the state tells you to read, then you probably deserve your ticket, is my opinion as your chief.
But I'll go back to the reasonable person. He reads this on the state law exemption, that tells me I don't have to be 100 feet from anything. It doesn't say anything about piers, docks, and all. I'm talking about a reasonable person, and you wouldn't expect that person to go back and look up section 30.66 subs 3 AG. They won't do that. I mean, a reasonable person, generally. But do we just go with this ordinance and put more buoys out? I'm trying to think of, we don't want there's an issue with boats coming too close to shore, regardless of piers and docks, because it's causing erosion and some other issues with our lakes. And from a Tri-Lakes point of view, that's something that needs to be addressed.
If that's the concern, sorry if I'm
I don't,
saying that.
excuse me, but I don't know the answer, but
If that were the concern, then what I'm hearing is perhaps you may want to consider removing the exemption. If that's the concern, the exemption is what allows them to do it where there's not a dock or buoys.
Or can you just add in another sentence that says unless within 100 feet of pier or
just-
navigation or regulatory buoy?
Add another couple words when landing a skier.
you may do that, put that on there. And the other thing, as far as,
Not when landing a skier, we can't do, because I mean, that's not what that statute says. That was maybe the reason we adopted that exemption, perhaps. I don't know the history there, but we adopted that exemption and we can't just fold it in like that unless we were doing stuff with our ordinance as well. I don't think I would recommend putting when landing a skier. The other language you talked about, sure. I mean, that's the reason why we're here and reviewing it. I mean, if there's a way to clarify it, certainly. Again, the sign itself is to reflect our local ordinance, right? Now, we do say that we adopt to incorporate those other statutory provisions, but to Chairman's point, if it's unclear, we can add more language. It's up to you.
and again, this is discussion
I
only.
think,
We're
I
not
think
making
item
decisions.
2 is unclear, and I think the exemption part at the end is unclear.
So you think item 2, the slow no wake regulations?
No, item 2, under the first, under slow, no wake regulations, item 2.
It's not clear
Just,
about that.
it was, I don't know where it came from, but it was, I believe, sold to us that we were exempt on the 200-foot for PWCs. I'm just telling you what
For
was.
state law, we're technically not, but if you
Yeah,
look
I
at the
know.
lakes, you couldn't even use it on half of both
I know,
of Camelot,
yes, and that's
so
why.
that's not enforceable.
That's why it was put out there, so what do you do?
100
rock and
foot,
hard
just
place.
like any other boat.
But we can't.
That's the
apparently.
practical,
You can on personal watercraft.
that's the practical application of the law. Yeah, the sign has to say what the sign says. Let's be realistic here, folks.
Then pull the language for number 2 that is in yellow, because that's statute. Again, the purpose of the sign is to reflect what our ordinance requirements are. So if we pulled the yellow out of number 2, I think it's very clear.
Well-
In fact, it's back to what it was previously, right?
Right.
The hours of operation for all personal watercraft. But statute still is statute, right? I mean, that's still exists.
Correct. I mean, I guess my suggestion would be, why don't we have somebody reach out to the ski team if they're not interested in this exemption?
Can
Bring
we
it
get-
back on a future agenda and
I don't know where they
and
could use
remove
this
it.
exemption anymore, other than at the show site, but at their homes, like, everything's built up these days. I know there are a number that had homes where there was the only pier within a couple hundred feet
There's
in
a
both
few beach
directions,
clubs,
right?
I think
But
that one down by 8th Avenue on the north side of the lake doesn't have any docks, so they can
There's a
swing in there and drop.
Lift in
Right,
there now and a dock, but that's another
But
issue.
I mean, if it's not used, if we're not using it, now would be the time to remove it and shorten up the sign if we don't want the exemption anymore.
How does that work with
It
the
can be
ski club
removed.
though? Because it would be Arrowhead most of the summer, and then they go to Camelot for frolics, they go to Sherwood and they would
Fourth, yeah.
for sure be dropping them closer than the 100 feet. I mean, for the shows, they're dropping them.
But then you get into a whole thing, it's a special event, right? And you can permit,
You
we
could-
used to permit those, but
Yeah, so general practice nights, they would have to stay 100 feet away from shore when they have the permit for the show or whatever. That's a different story, but they're general, when they're not doing shows and practicing, they'd have to follow the state law, 100 feet from from shore, and I don't know if you're gonna get more headaches on that with people coming in and complaining, hey, how come you did this, and I drive my pontoon closer than that to shore. Like I said, I'm not aware of any of these complaints. No one's come into my office and voiced any concern with any of these things. Any of the tickets that we've wrote for boating, no one's came in and said, hey, chief, this sign is totally confusing and I didn't understand it and that's why I got the ticket. And I don't know if Attorney Flanagan's had any of those in pre-trials, but I've had nothing since this has been put into
It
effect.
was brought to my attention last fall as an issue. I looked at it and I said, oh boy, yeah.
Yeah, it's been there since 2013, exactly as it's worded, so.
But Lori?
I think we have an issue on, maybe I'm wrong, but I think right at the narrowest part of Lake Arrowhead too, when you go right down the middle, isn't it kind of like 200 feet? Doesn't that kind of create a problem too? Didn't we have that discussion a
I
few
could tell
years?
you coming out of the channel on Upper Camelot, it's 360 feet across, so that means every jet ski would have to idle through there,
And that's the
and
conversation,
boats don't.
right, at Lake Arrowhead, right at the narrowest point, I
this-
think we had that conversation. You go right down the middle of that narrowest point, that's,
What's the
Your
answer?
narrows on Sherwood, you're gonna have the same thing. A
Yeah,
motorboat's gonna have
it's
to
a
slow to slow
problem.
no wake if there's
Right.
another motorboat in the middle because you won't have
Yeah.
enough clearance to stay away from that boating and go through. You're gonna have people.
But that goes back to the practical application of the law. Like, that, we're not even talking about the law, that the law is what it is.
right,
We're just talking about the exemption that we have
right,
and how we're wording that and if we even need that.
right.
And again, if we wanna put buoys out there, I've been in conversation with the DNR, we may need permits for anything anchored to the bottom. So I don't know yet. I'm still waiting for an answer on that.
What would we have the buoys say though? I don't understand what
No
would
Stay
we
off
put
the
on a
lake.
buoy?
No wake. Well, no wake. If you wanna put the no wake buoys
joking.
in specific areas around the lake, I'm thinking.
Yeah, we have them in
whatnot.
some, but
Sorry?
we don't, we have slow no wake buoys on Sherwood in the areas where it's slow no wake. There isn't any slow no wake, and we have them marking the channel on Camelot. Other than that, there isn't any.
But we can add more.
But the problem with that is though, if you have a no wake buoy, you're supposed to be no wake within 100 feet of that buoy,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
So if you set the buoy 100 feet out from shore,
yep,
technically, if you really want to get into the letter of the law here.
exactly.
I
Fun,
can
isn't it?
say this, and speaking with the DNR on buoys, which has been a heated topic here, we went through it with Tri-Lake, or the Adams County Water with the buoys that used to be along the dams. The DNR frowns on buoys, so it's likely if we apply for buoys to put at every bay that's narrower than 100 feet, they're gonna deny it.
He came up with a suggestion for one over on Sherwood. Was his suggestion, DNR.
Which DNR person? Wade Romberg, our warden, or, because I've tried to, through the town, the DNR gives you different answers depending who you talk to, but our
Scott.
conservation warden said they will not approve a buoy. If you have a dock and you're supposed to be 100 feet away from it, they won't approve a buoy to mark the dock that you're supposed to be 100 feet away from. The conservation warden in this county has to sign off on our buoy permit. And he's clearly said no when we've approached on other things. He said state law covers that and you're not supposed to be there anyway. So if the DNR can't even have their own folks on the same page, I'm not gonna get into that argument as the
Yeah.
police chief here, but we've dealt with buoys in this town to the point, we had them on,
Petenwell,
Eatonwell and the little channel there for the homeowners. They're against the DNR. They actually signed off on it, and that's when they said this is the last time we're gonna do this. We had buoys within 100 feet of docks all the way through there because the homeowners complained that boats were going too fast. We've since rescinded that ordinance and don't place those anymore, and that's when the DNR said we're not gonna approve any more buoy permits for stuff that's already covered by state law. So, but I guess as your police chief in the future, I'd like to be part of these conversations. I get blindsided with this stuff like the addressing and now the buoys. I know nothing about the core root of what's going on here, and maybe we can answer some of these questions outside of a board meeting if I'm actually brought into the loop and have time to research it, and I can get you names of who said what and when they did, pull emails from the past and kind of head some of this off. But when I'm put on the spot at a board meeting, I don't have that information with me, but we've
Well, we've been working on this one since last fall, right? So,
At Tri-Lakes, it's,
Tri-Lakes we have in here, well, not here, but so much.
But I haven't heard anything about like buoys marking bays and that we should put them out there or the DNR recommended.
That was
buoy
private
placement.
citizen with the DNR, so
Okay,
we haven't, nothing else has been done with that. But again, the DNR rep is Scott Provost, but he came up with a recommendation of putting booms in and buoys basically to keep boats out and keep algae out of the bay.
Oh,
Yeah. All right, so we chew on this one for a while and
Can-
bring it up next
Can I
time?
ask maybe just maybe a transitional point? Do you want this brought back at a future agenda related to the exemption? So the purpose of this agenda item was signage. But it sounds like there's a larger conversation potentially related to the exemption. I think we just need to know what the board would like us to do
Certainly before we purchase signage.
before.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think I agree with Supervisor Goldman. There's very few places that you're able to use this exemption, and my predecessor, when it was discussed here, said that, and that's why they exempted it, because it was for specific purposes to safely drop families off that are participating in water sport activities versus dropping them in the busy channel. That was its intent. So if it's not being used for the intent, we should check with those folks and.
Well, is it needed on all three lakes? I don't know. It's, we have to look at it, and
Well,
safety is important, for sure.
Yeah, I guess, I think maybe there's homework here for
Yeah.
Chief and Jamie to figure out. We don't want to inadvertently negatively impact the ski team and their ability to do what they do here in the town, right? So let's make sure that this isn't still in use for a particular purpose. And then maybe we bring it back.
I just think it also just needs to be clarified so that the person reading it can understand what you're saying. And you could just add a line saying the ski team is exempt from all these things and you have a special use permit that's required.
Are these signs at all of our launches?
Public launches.
Public launches. If you recall, I had approached you on
Yeah.
behalf of Lake Camelot last year saying it would be nice if we had a coordinated effort to update this signage and
Yeah.
we'd put
But
up
we had,
signs. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we gotta
This
do,
issue came
hash
up.
this stuff out, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you update signage at the Camelot landing?
No, we don't, we've got very old signs there, but if the town's going to do something, we'd prefer to do it in harmony and have the same signs.
You're doing very nice work at Camelot.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll bring it up later, something to think about and come up with some thoughts, suggestions, check with folks and check with the ski team. Can you check with the ski team, see what their thoughts are? Thank you. Number 12, discussion only, update on police and fire commission selection for fire chief position.
This too is a discussion only item. I just put a letter in the packet, just from Mike Baker, the chairman of police and fire, saying that their selection was to promote, Chief Mark Kane to the position. So, we have issued him a separate, offer letter through the town that would mark the start date of the full-time permanent position as of March 2nd, sorry, May 2nd. So then, I don't know if you wanna invite Chief up at all, but
Should we?
Do you have an acceptance speech or anything like that prepared?
Just a note, there is a pinning ceremony on the 16th,
the
correct?
16th we'll do a pinning ceremony, yes. And that we'll send an invite, Chairman Baker and I'll send an invite out prior to that, but it'll be in the community room.
Okay, thank you. Number 13, discussion and possible action, review fire chief report regarding responsible persons determination pursuant to Town Code 191-9 sub H, and authorization of fire chief to invoice responsible persons for starting fire suppression services for extinguishment of an unattended fire.
The investigation report was in the packet along with the invoice that would go to, the negligent individual in this case. Chief is here if you had any additional questions. Chief, did you wanna add anything to it?
I'm just
So
curious,
do we
do
need
you
a
use?
motion or what?
Yeah, you would need a motion for us to bill them.
Okay, I move that we approve the fire chief's review of the subject fire and the invoice for $1,011.48.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Number 14, discussion of possible recommendation to Adams County Board of Adjustment, Rome Country Meats and Deli LLC variance request from Adams County Private Sewage Systems Ordinance 294-3 sub B sub 6 for approval of holding tank. The variance request is associated with land described as Lot 1 of CSM 5205, Section 08, Town 20 North, Range 06 East, Town of Rome, with a property identification number of 30-1136-0596.
So the Board of Adjustment for the county actually met yesterday. I had included in the packet that I had sent them the site plan of operation for Rome Country Meats. That was approved by Plan Commission and by Town Board. What this is really referring to is because the meat market would have a potential for a higher strength waste, it requires a different type of conventional septic. They do have approval to put in that higher strength conventional septic, but another option to that is to put a holding tank in, and the waste would be pumped into that holding tank and then pumped out instead of going through any traditional septic. The county is comfortable with that holding tank being installed, but by county ordinance, that isn't allowed for new construction, which requires a variance. So the county did approve that variance yesterday to have a separate holding tank installed. I just really wanted to make sure that we talked about it because we don't have a lot of these. We do have some for residential properties that happen to be variants because of retaining walls or different things with shoreline zoning. We don't get a lot with commercial, so I just wanted to make sure that we were having a conversation about it.
Didn't Pritzels have one?
Probably, they could have.
Okay.
I'm not, it
Good.
would have been permitted through the county.
Basically, it's a grease trap for fat and things.
Yeah.
So if the county's approved the variance already, we don't need to
You
make
don't
a
need to.
recommendation about the variance.
No, I did keep it on as an action item in case you did wanna take action, but, I did send them the site plan of operation, that we had approved both through Plan Commission and Town Board, and they were comfortable with that.
They didn't want to put one in big enough for a car wash?
So big.
All right, so we don't need to take any action on this? Okay. Number 15, discussion and possible action, request by Wisconsin Dunes LLC for the exclusion of parcel numbers 30-334, 30-340, 30-339-10 from the mortgage granted to the Town of Rome pursuant to the development agreement among the Town of Rome, Wisconsin Dunes LLC, and Sin Valley LLC dated as of August 10th, 2016.
So there's two agenda items, they relate to different parcels. When we discuss them, they might blend a little, so just that starting at that point, there was a memo in the packet. These release for mortgages are allowed per our developers agreement, so when items are developed, you can see there that there's two caveats, that the third party that purchased them commits to developing a taxable parcel, hotel, condo, restaurant, home, etc. That's verbatim from the developer's agreement, and so is number 2, that the remaining property subject to the mortgage shall have sufficient value as reasonably determined by the board to adequately secure the outstanding principal balance due on the note. So the first one that's in the packet tonight is for parcels that would be part of Sedge Village. Not all of the parcels of Sedge Village are part of the original developer's agreement because a series of that land was purchased from Meteor Timber after the development agreement went into place. So you're gonna see within that packet of information, the parcels, the 340s that we're talking about, and this would be a release of those 340s in totality. So maybe we start with that one since that's this agenda item, and then the first part about the release for mortgage still applies to the second, but is a slightly different situation because it's for the condo.
Do we have anything that tells us what the remaining property values are that would provide collateral for our mortgage?
So in this case for Sedge Village, there's nothing there, right?
Nothing, right.
So, whatever would be constructed would, for sure exceed what that tax base is, because this is just vacant property, just timberland property right now. I think your question would relate more to the next one, where we do have, something that's constructed and has value,
Right.
has a value assigned to it. Not that this doesn't, it's just very small in terms of just vacant land.
When they sell their properties, do they have a time frame to build with their buyer?
It's a good question. It's potentially they do. I would assume most times when the property is purchased, it's with a plan. I mean, they have an overall plan of what it's going to look like or be, so I would assume that, I don't know that there's a certain date though.
Well, I would just say that on their letter, they say that they'll be developed within the next year.
Wow.
So I would take from that they have some agreement that will be developed in a pretty short time frame.
I don't know that would all be, it would be difficult for 33 houses to get built
Yeah.
in a year. But
Well, there's
certainly the lots laid out, sold, marked, work to be done, yes.
There's 14 in this section here in these 340s, so, but,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, we need a motion?
I'll move to approve the request by Wisconsin Dunes LLC for the exclusion of parcel numbers 03000334000 and 030000340 and 0300033900010 from the mortgage granted to the town of Rome pursuant to the development agreement among the town of Rome and Wisconsin Dunes LLC and Sand Valley dated as of August 10th, 2016.
All right, I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Number 16, discussion and possible action, request by Wisconsin Dunes LLC for the exclusion of Unit 2, Mammoth Condominium, presently a part of parcel 30-319-115, or -15, from the mortgage granted to the town of Rome pursuant to a development agreement among the town of Rome, Wisconsin Dunes LLC, and Sand Valley LLC, dated as of August 10th, 2016.
So besides the memo in the packet, then there was additional information from Wisconsin Dunes. So this would be for a release of Unit 2 of the 3-unit condo development of the clubhouse. This has not been recorded yet, which is why you see several blanks on the Exhibit A page. I did reach out to our town assessor, and it's open book and board of review time, and so he's in a different municipality every day. So while he and I did not talk directly, we played phone tag back and forth on messages this week. Because it hasn't been recorded, they haven't seen the 3 individual units with square footage and what would be included, so they don't have values assigned yet to the 3 units. There will be, he can assign values to those units, and he will assign values to those units, but they haven't gotten to that far yet. Sand Valley would like to request that release of Unit 2 before that's done, before the recording is even completed totally on those 3 units. I can tell you that the overall value of the clubhouse, what it is assessed at, is $24,767,000. I can't tell you that they're gonna take that and divide it somehow into 3, right? He will take each unit as an individual unit and assign value to it, as assessors do. I couldn't begin to give you that equation of how that's done, but I also don't wanna allude that he takes that number and somehow divides it into 3.
But then each of those units will be taxable
The whole unit's taxable now, yes,
Right.
and 3 would be taxable, yes,
separately.
yeah.
But the question comes back to the release of the mortgage and what collateral is left for the town. And in my opinion, we don't have the ability to carry out our fiduciary responsibility until those values are assigned.
May I ask a question of Nick, please? Nick, there was an additional document here for us, supporting document here. And is that document where it says it was a part of the original developers agreement back in
Yep.
2016
Yes.
for security for the mortgage? Is that a supporting documentation for both item 15 and 16?
It is, but certainly relevant to this conversation right now, and I think to what Supervisor Gomez
Yes.
is getting at. Really, again,
Yes.
just for those that are watching and in the audience, the concern here is whether or not the board can reasonably determine that you're adequately secured by the outstanding principal balance, or for the
Right.
outstanding principal balance by what remains. And I think what we heard the administrator say is that eventually we will know that number.
Right.
Right now, we don't. And until we know that number,
Well, don't we
whether
hold,
you can reasonably determine what is covered if you release this, I'm not so sure that you can.
we hold as collateral more than just the clubhouse though, right? The whole golf course and all the other buildings associated with it that haven't been released yet, right?
Yes?
So you hold the golf course, you hold the shop, the workshop, and you hold Craig's porch. The attorney and I are having discussions about two of the home properties, cause I don't reflect that they were released, but, he believes that they were. So at this moment, you have three properties you hold first priority mortgage. The clubhouse, which is by far the largest, the shop, and Craig's porch.
What about the other two units that are also used for, guests, visitors, and for rentals?
What do you mean when you say the other two units?
The units that are used when people come to stay and golf.
So,
There's two other buildings
Oh, she's talking about the hotel units
Yes.
to the
to the north.
south, I think,
Well, there's two to the north and two to the south.
right?
Southwest.
Talking about
all
I'm
of
trying to-
those
the fourplexes?
properties are individually owned and have been released from mortgage. So Crenshaw's cabin, the fourplex that's below it, the ones that are alongside that would face the sandbox, those are all individually owned properties that have been released from mortgage.
But they are being taxed. Okay. They're
everything's
all
being
getting
taxed.
taxed. That's
Yes,
correct.
Everything's being taxed.
Yeah, the
Okay.
question is, do we have enough to secure our collateral for what the remaining mortgage is? Is this something that Ellers could help us with?
It's not that Ellers couldn't help us with it, but I think the assessor needs to be given a reasonable amount of time to assign.
The value
math
to the,
isn't difficult, right? Like, we know how much we owe on the loan, so, and once we would have a value to all three, it's not a difficult equation, I just can't tell you what the value are to those three units.
I think we're at a difficult time of year because we don't have the value on what those two condos, and I respect and understand Supervisor Goman's point, but I also don't want people to get the wrong idea that we're not secure in what we're doing right now, because there is a security clause in this original developers agreement, and if it was read, people would understand that. It does say, nothing herein shall make the landowner liable, but I mean, there is things here that secure our position, but there's also unknown numbers. If we would read this and include this in our minutes, so people can read this and see that we are secure in our position, and we are covered to an extent, but we just have numbers that we're trying to deal and make a decision now that we don't know until those numbers come in from the assessor. So,
With that said, I would just, given the rest of
the paragraph, right,
there is no more letter of credit because the value has exceeded it, so
Right.
your security is the first, priority mortgage. That's
Right.
your last security. The other securities that were part of the developers agreement have timed out or costed
right.
out.
Are there any time constraints on this for them?
I am sure that there are, but it's your decision.
Because of the
mean,
summer
they
season.
I'd
could
like to have the
record it.
numbers too, because
Re-record it after we know what the value is and approve it, right? There's nothing to prohibit them from doing that.
Oh, they will still proceed with recording. They'll still
Right.
proceed with.
So we're not holding them up if we don't approve this tonight.
You're not holding them up from recording that
Right.
condominium plat. You are not acting, if you're tabling this item until you get those figures, you are not acting on this request to release the mortgage. So I don't mean to answer that, in a way that maybe you're not asking, but, we are holding up that piece of it, I suppose, but we aren't holding up their recording of the condominium plat.
Yeah, that's all been approved. If anything, we're holding up their ability to sell that particular.
Right.
ability to
Parcel.
finance it, they can sell it. All
Yeah.
we're looking at is release of the lien.
the end of the day, there's been plenty of warning to them that
Yeah.
this particular issue was going to be a problem. Cause this came up way back at the plan commission when they brought up, dividing that property, so.
And can I just clarify, I think the warning was that it could be a concern until we knew the answers.
Right.
So they certainly had, forewarning that we wanted to know what those values were going to be before we would be comfortable with releasing the mortgage.
Was there any discussion, Dan, possibly of doing one unit and not both? Or was it an all or nothing thing?
This is
Discussion.
one
This is
unit
one.
of three.
Now, but
Oh, I
they're
thought there
going to
were
come.
two on
no,
that.
The letter,
There's
the
two
letter
in here.
says that they're only going to do this
The
one.
other two thing that was.
No, they're gonna, they're not
Sage
going to
Village,
come
but-
for unit one, but when they
Just
develop
for one.
unit three, they're
Oh,
gonna
I
come
s-
for
I
that
read
one
it
as
as the
well.
two. I'm
They've
sorry,
divided,
my
they've divided
mistake.
the clubhouse into 3 separate properties, essentially. At no point in any of these conversations did Sand Valley send any representation that was equipped to discuss this in particular. Nor,
Okay,
nor would it have been
thank you.
appropriate to do at the plan commission, but
Okay,
we're here now, so.
okay. I saw it as two. I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. I misread that then. I'm sorry.
The letter does say we do not intend to seek release of Unit 1, which encompasses most of the remaining clubhouse building and surrounding land. So they
I
did,
misread that
they
then.
did add that to the letter that they do not intend to seek release of Unit 1. But yes, this
Unit
one would
1.
only be for Unit 2.
Two, okay. That's
So-
where the two came in. Okay.
Table this?
I think so.
And I just, we can table it just to a future meeting. I just put out there, Associate Appraisal is doing the open book and the board of review. All board of reviews that, for all the municipalities that they represent have to be done by June 8th. So.
Which is our day.
Yes, so we, you're not gonna have, I don't know that we would have it until after he gets through cause he'll be booked almost every day.
Yeah, but
So instead of-
Supervisors Goldman's
Instead
point,
of tabling it to a specific meeting,
No.
you could just table it until you receive that information and put it on the next.
Supervisor Goldman's point was that they've had time, so. We'll table 16. Number 17, discussion and possible action, continue consideration of potential American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, project funding options.
So I continue to update our original memo, just so we kinda keep it all into one section. I will note we had to file our first report, which was done by the April 30th deadline, but in that report, we have to give all of the projects that we've approved numbers. They can just be arbitrary numbers, but the way that I did it, which you'll see on the last page of this memo, is the first project and then the date that we approved it. So project number 1 for 2/17/22 for 65,000 was the gas line. Project number 2 was the gap piece to complete all of our road work that we had scheduled for 2022. Project number 3 is the engineering for our BIL, STP through the DOT grant. I just enjoy saying that now.
Yes, she
So,
does. She's
yeah.
getting too much fun out of
Can you
that.
put that in English for the rest of us?
The biennial, grant program for roads through for the Department of Transportation, the Apache 8th through 10th grant.
And we should have that answer.
May 9th. Project number 4 was the hazard and premium pay, and again, I know I mentioned it at the annual meeting, that was approved for 41. We did have to do, WRS on that, so it came out a little bit higher. That's the 4282 that's on there, so it's slightly more. And then the 123,900 is the crack and chip sealing of all roads that would have been 2023 moved up to this year.
And that one you can't say.
So, committed, I show is the 247, because this is the way we had to reflect our report. Expended is the 59,000. We do have a difference with what we were asked for the gas line expansion, which was the 17. So, our remaining total allocation would be the 40,000, but if you add back in our difference for gas line, you'd have 87,360. So just working through the math there of what it is. Now, we don't have the second allocation yet. We expect it around the June timeframe. Just don't wanna, have checks until we have invoices until we truly receive that second allocation. I don't expect that, but it's gonna be around the June timeframe.
So what are you asking for us tonight?
Well, I think we just, I wanted to give an update where we're at,
Okay.
let you know that the report's filed, and then two, if there are other items, then we would add those to the next agenda for separate consideration. We did take a little break because we had to file the report. The two that I had brought up last time that we have some continued interest in, one would be the parking lot pieces that we need to get done. That would be the library, the additional piece on the backside of the police and EMS building, and the pad in front of the salt shed. So the pad in front of the salt shed is required by DOT standards because of the salt and what comes out of there, and it needs to get redone. You might add just a little bit of piece to that. The piece behind the police and EMS building just would decrease sand and debris that's getting put into that building from the equipment. Chief Labby can speak even more to that, but just help us hold our investment in the floors in that building and keep it cleaner.
When you say behind, are you talking about the north side of the building or the west side?
The north side of the police and EMS
In
building.
other words, outside of the apron that goes into the
Yes,
garage?
yes, making an additional piece there. And it would also, and I don't know, now that we have Lifestar, you can see where they kind of like park behind there too. It would allow that to be paved where we have those cars being parked. And then the library has had a desire to want to expand that parking lot for some time. They have the property, Public Works has helped them to get the stumps removed and grade it. Arrowhead helped us with some additional fill this year when they, or last year when they did the clubhouse, so that paving piece. So that was one, and I have the potential, that's $35,000, and I have the potential breakdown of what those three items would cost. If library would be more than $17,000, they do have a capital budget that could help fill that gap if it would be more than that number. And then the other one is just that the fire department self-contained breathing apparatus. Again, those are the air tanks that they wear into fires. They do also have the alarm, so if a firefighter would go down, it's gonna send out that beacon and it's gonna make that noise for them to be found. Ours are non-compliant. They can still be used, but they aren't compliant with NFPA. I love those acronyms. We did receive a grant last week from Adams County Electric Co-op to purchase one of them, which is $8,895. They're not inexpensive equipment. And we did also submit a grant to
Visit Rome.
Visit Rome and to FEMA. We submitted 2 grants to help cover that cost.
The full amount?
Not the full amount because we would divide that into 3 years, that capital investment. So we wouldn't be purchasing all 20 that we need in 1 year and then they would all come non-compliant again. We'd cycle it into 3 years, 8 this year, 6 next year, and 6 the year after. So it was for half of the $80,000 that it takes to replace 8 plus 20 masks and some charging equipment for them.
Those are considered capital equipment?
They would, I mean, they're a large enough expenditure in a group that they would be a capital item. And they have a longevity to them.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions, if I could,
Sure.
please. Okay, first off, I think the library's been waiting a long time to get their parking lot resurfaced, and I think that's something that we should really work towards getting off this list, as well as the police EMS building. And with that being, I believe what they call an impervious surface over by that salt shed, and the concern about what might leak into the soil over there, I think that should be one of these are my opinions.
Jamie mentioned that portion of it is required.
Yeah, and I think that should be something we should focus on. As far as the camping permit software, that's routine work that they have to deal with every year, and as camping grows in the town, I think that's something we should really think about spending our money on. Getting to the breathing apparatus, I have a couple of questions, please. I know these are very, very important. I'm curious, how long have these been expired and non-compliant?
Chief, do you want to?
Their NFPA compliance went out in 2021, early 2021. So we're just a year out now.
And so they're still usable, we're still using them, but they are, once they would become inoperable, they're inoperable.
Okay, so,
Is that a fair statement, Chief?
There is our biggest hurdle right now is the actual bottles themselves, because of their carbon fiber makeup. They have a service life, and that's, our bottles are out of that service life, so we cannot have them recertified right now,
okay,
and we're out of that certification time period.
okay. And you have a carryover right now of 99,000, and I understand you might be saving for something, I get that. You have more insurance dues coming in this year, probably in July, which is an unexpected amount, correct? I know you're waiting for grants. Is it not possible that you could possibly use, to get this off this list, because we have roads and other things coming up, is it not possible that you could use the fire insurance dues that are coming in July, use some of the carryover that you have, and you have another grant possibly coming in from FEMA, some of that other money to get that off of this list?
Just so you know where the FEMA grants land, there was 12,000 applications for
I
FEMA.
understand that, I understand
Can I
that.
finish, please?
Yeah, well, I understand, yeah.
There was 12,000 applications to the FEMA grant system this year, and they will award 2,000.
Right, I understand. But I'm also asking if with the unexpected insurance dues that are coming, with them expiring in '21, and with the carryover, is it possible that we could use our insurance dues to free up this ARPA money for other expenses that we have further down this list? That's the question I'm asking.
So 2% dues coming in this year. What we would receive this year is approximately 27,000 for Rome, and then we get a very small piece from Saratoga for their fire coverage. So we budgeted that additional piece coming in this year would be $28,000.
Okay,
So again, I think the piece of this was just to take all of it from 2% dues would deplete it greatly.
I understand that.
So is there, again, even with the grants that we applied for, is there a cost share that's available as not to deplete that fund so significantly?
I understand that. But then there's also the Fireman's Fund, which the community also donates into. So I'm just looking for other resources to help us fund those apparatus besides just ARPA, because we also have our roads and this whole other list that we want to deal with. I'm just asking if we could use some of those other funds.
Everything tonight is just, we're just chewing on it, nothing's gonna
Right.
be decided. Quick question, is 7 packs you have now, is that the full inventory or do you have more?
We currently have 28 units, and with the redesign that we've got, that our plan shows going into the future, we'll only need 20 with our reconfigured seating.
Of the 28 you have now, how many are they all usable at this moment?
No, we have 2 that are completely inoperable.
Yeah, so you have 26.
So you have 26, and out of those 26, 7 are non-compliant?
No, they're all non-compliant.
All of them? The whole batch?
Yes, they were bought at one batch in the past.
That's why we want to do a 7, 6, and 6, so we're not in the
So
same
you can
situation.
replace them all in 3 years.
Yes.
Chief, the carbon fiber bottles, are they not certifiable, but are they refillable or not?
We are able to refill them, but they go through a 5-year duty cycle, and they get recertified after that span of 5 years. And now that they're past their life expectancy, the certification company will not recertify them.
But you can still refill them and use them.
Correct. We refill them here on site.
Another point, on the parking lot improvements at 35,000, what's the probability of getting a contractor to perform that this year?
So we have American coming back at the end of the summer for some items, and so we would ask for these to get put on when they come back. After this year, very small, right? Because of all of the money that's coming out, it's gonna be very hard to get those small paving jobs done. But we did ask that question, and Brad said it could be added on to the projects that they would come back for, finishing projects they would come back for middle, end of summer.
Are we going to make any progress exclusive of paving and finally finishing it, but on the parking lot across from the gazebo? Are we gonna put any stone down there this year and any grading at all?
We don't have that in the plan for grading or stone. I don't know that we would do, I mean, we require businesses to pave, so I would think we would.
Yeah, eventually we're gonna pave it, I understand that, but I mean, we could go and do some development of it already.
We could potentially do grading, but I would just, we don't allow businesses to eventually pave. So I think would be hard. But we could grade it so it could be ready to be paved. I could see maybe adding that into when we do the road, when we pave the road, do the parking lot at the same time, put them together as a package. That needs, that parking lot's gonna be expensive because we need a lot of fill in there. That ground has been say that 3 times fast. Pine plantation for so long, it's gonna need some digging out and good fill put in. That's why that's that expense. We could get started on that excavation piece, but
Can I suggest the board review all this and we come back on our next meeting and put some suggestions on what they think would be priorities?
Yeah, and Lori mentioned that the library is a repaving project. It's not really a repaving project, it's a parking lot addition, right?
yeah, there isn't any.
Oh, I didn't say repaving.
I thought you did, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But I'm with you on that parking lot for the Rome Town Center too. It'd be nice if we could at least get it gravelled or something for extra parking.
Absolutely not. Not after beating up all these businesses to pave. We're not gonna do that. That took years of the
Well, I
town board
understand.
beating
I
up
was
people
part
to
of all
pave
of
their
that.
properties after letting them not. Now we're gonna do that? No, that's not right.
Well, I understand that, but
Well, if we're not
fine,
using it
laugh
as a
at me
parking
then. That's
lot, I mean,
fine,
it's
that's fine,
under construction,
it.
right?
fine.
Again, we came up with priorities a while
I
back.
get it.
and,
That's fine. That's fine.
I think we continue moving along that path, but the board's decision, I think we come back next time and come up
You
with some
asked for
suggestions.
extra ideas, Jamie. One I thought of that we had talked about previously was replacing town road signs that are maybe hanging off or unreadable, or you can't even see them anymore at night, or what the name of the road is.
Also, to Jamie's point, we haven't gotten that second check yet, so.
Well, she just asked for extra ideas once the second
No,
check
I'm not,
comes in.
I'm just,
Yeah,
in general,
yeah. It won't be here till June, so don't
Hopefully.
spend it yet, right?
right?
the no separate agenda items for action, next meeting. Just wanted, I'll continue to have ARPA on it, but I won't have any separate action items.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Number 18, discussion and action, approval of town board appointments to the following committees and commissions. If a supervisor wishes to have separate consideration of any appointment, that request can be made by motion without a second. That appointment will then be considered separately. A, Alcohol Beverage License Review Committee, Bob Barheit, expiring April 18th, 2023, one-year term. B, Community Development Authority, Lori Giamatti, her term of office appointment. C, Parks and Recreation, Bob Barheit, expiring April 18th, 2023, one-year term. Plan Commission, Lori Giamatti, term of office appointment. F, Tri-Lakes, Bob Barheit, term of office appointment.
Can this be actioned in one motion?
It can, but you can also pull, if anybody wanted to pull one out, they could pull one of these out as well. Otherwise, it can be a consensus item.
I'll make a motion to approve the town board appointments to the listed committees and commissions.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? And I believe all the background is in the packet here as well, right?
For board members, there isn't.
Well, but not for the board
Yeah,
members,
but for the
outside,
others, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Alrighty. 19, discussion and action, approval of various appointments to town board committees and commissions. If a supervisor wishes to have separate consideration of any appointment, that request can be made by motion without a second. That appointment will then be considered separately. A, Cheryl Evanson, Community Development Authority, expiring May 1st, 2026, four-year term. Correction from prior meeting, four-year term. B, Sue Kruger, Parks and Recreation, expiring May 1st, 2026, four-year term. C, Larry Halverson, Plan Commission, expiring May 1st, 2025, three-year term. D, Paul Janizek, Plan Commission, expiring May 1st, 2025, three-year term. E, Jerry Wiesinger, knew you weren't going to get away. Plan Commission, expiring May 1st, 2023, filling a vacant position for the remainder of a three-year term. F, Patrick Beck, Police and Fire Commission, expiring May 1st, 2027, five-year term.
And again, this one can be approved in its entirety if, unless somebody wants to pull one out as a consent agenda.
Right.
Move to approve the citizen appointments to the various committees as presented.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Dates and items for future agenda meetings. Number 20, next agenda items.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would say that based on our discussion tonight, we ought to have a committee set up or a discussion at least on uniform and non-conflicting signage at Sand Valley
For sure.
for
Yes.
addresses.
Yes.
We'll add that. I don't know that we need a committee. We'll have a conversation and we'll bring
Yeah.
back what.
Fine.
You're gonna basically meet with Sand Valley with both chiefs and,
And their general manager.
Yeah.
We'll assess what's happening there. We'll also have several plan commission items. for the next meeting.
of course,
As always.
couldn't be without. Alrighty. Next, number 21, next meeting date and time.
Next meeting date and time would be Thursday, May 19th at 5 PM.
Can I get a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried.